The Art and Industry of Business and Living podcast, discussing conscious choices around business, money, life and living, and creating a greater future for you and the planet. Hey everybody, welcome to the Art and Industry of Business and Living. You are with your host, surprise, surprise, every week. I know, same person shows up, Simone. And this week I'm in Houston, Texas. So we're about to do a bars facilitators class, first time ever, which is very, very exciting. But the most exciting thing that is occurring right now, right here for you, ladies and gentlemen, is I have two of my very, 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 very favorite people in the world. So Mr. Gary Douglas and Dr. Dain Heer, welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, you guys would have heard me. I mean, every single week I send you to Dr. Dain with theclearingstatement.com because I don't want to explain the clearing statement. Get Dain do it for me.
Yeah, and why reinvent the wheel?
Exactly. So, and Gary Douglas is the founder of Access Consciousness, Dain, the co-creator of Access Consciousness. So we have them here today talking about, I'm not so sure it's one of their favorite topics, but it's a very prevalent topic that we need to talk about in this world today so that we can actually create a different possibility showing up.
Good idea.
Yes. So this one is about relationships.
Yes.
And I actually asked a bunch of staff to send in questions that they had. So I have some here and then we can just go wherever you want. And you can swear, process, do whatever the hell you want. Okay?
Awesome.
This is our podcast.
Let's do swearing process.
Yeah, okay, let's do it.
What the fuck do you think you're doing? Pock and pot all that shit.
Exactly.
Wouldn't that be nice if you could just do that with people?
But you can. Right now, right here, on this podcast.
Girl, you're awesome.
Mi podcast is Sig podcast, like mi casa si casa.
Your Spanish is
just phenomenal.
Off the charts.
Yeah.
Great.
Well, actually, I found out today that I was telling Gary a story about a Spanish guy I was saying his name was Luis. And Gary lets me tell the whole story and he goes, "Are you sure his name is not Luis?" And I went, "Yeah, probably." And he hasn't corrected me.
Yes. It's actually Louis.
Yeah, so
It does remind me of your first time in the U.S., though.
It does.
Gary and Simone were at a restaurant, and the waiter came over 5 or 6 times. And normally Simone...
I wasn't there.
Oh, really?
No, it was a cafe that I used to go and get my coffee in San Francisco.
Yeah.
And he was a very, very sweet guy. And he was so lovely. And then he was calling, like he introduced himself, well, not introduced himself, but he found out my name. So he was calling me by his name, my name, etc. And then when I said, I just can't call him by his name. And they were like, what's his name? And I said, Jesus.
In Hispanic, that is Jesus.
Yeah. So for all you Aussies and Europeans out there, you've got my back. You know what I'm talking about. And for all the Americans, hopefully they're rolling around laughing now thinking,
there are a lot of people in the United States who would still not get it as Jesus, okay?
Right.
You know, it's like I had an aunt once. It's like we lived in San Diego, and it's like there was a place called El Cajon, which means the box. And it's like, and she called it El Cajon. and it's like there was a place called La Jolla, which was where the rich people live, and she called it La Jolla.
La Jolla.
And there was a place called La Mesa, which meant the tabletop, basically, which was a flat area. It was called La Mesa. And she called it La Mesa.
There you go.
Well,
it gets all confusing around the world. Well, I'm just grateful to this day that I didn't actually thank Jesus for my coffee. So,
Thank you, Lord Jesus.
Yes, exactly.
Thank you, Jesus, for my coffee.
And around Christmas time, did you ask him if his birthday was coming up?
Oh, dear. So let's get into some of these questions.
Let's do that.
Okay. So I'm just like picking and choosing from these, but one of the ones I wanted to start with is, what do you see that makes a relationship so valuable and vital in this reality?
Insanity.
I'm going to go with that.
Okay. Boom. That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's like, why are you making relationship more vital and valuable than you? I see people all the time who think that, if I don't have a relationship, I'm not complete. I hate to tell you are complete, with or without a relationship.
Yeah, and that's actually the difficulty that also creates most of the problems in the relationship.
Yeah.
Because you have this idea that you're not complete without one, and so you'll sell your soul to get one as though that completes you.
Yeah.
And so what you'll do is you'll put up with all kinds of limitations. And the people that have great relationships, they don't come at it from needing the other person. They come at it from, I'm cool, I'm great, and wow, this person actually contributes to my life.
And this person is fun to be with.
Yeah.
And it's like, the purpose of relationship should be about you both surviving better and greater. It should be about increasing your survival, not about making you real or whole or anything else. I have a friend who contacted me a few days ago and goes, I have this relationship and I'm afraid I'm going to fuck it up. And I go, why? And he goes, well, because I think she's everything I wanted in a relationship and everything I thought I should have, and now that I feel like I have the perfect relationship, I have to destroy it. I said, yeah, that's the way most people function from. When they have a perfect relationship, they must destroy it in order to try and make it more perfect, because they achieved their goal. Once you achieve your goal, then you have to destroy it in order to be able to achieve it again.
Unless you acknowledge that you achieved your goal, and then you can set another target, something you actually shoot for. And so even having the tiny conversation we've had so far, you start to see relationship is just fucked up in this reality.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because a lot of people come to Access, and one of the things we used to hear for many years was that Access doesn't want people to have a relationship. And nothing could be further from the truth.
Actually, we don't want them to have a bad relationship.
Exactly.
If you have a relationship, at least make it a good one.
And this is one of the areas where people stick their heads in the sand so much. They don't want to have to be any different. They don't want to do anything different. They want to find the perfect person that completes them exactly as they are without ever having to grow and become greater. And so if you talk to them about anything else, they're like, blah, 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 with their fingers in their ears like, I can't hear you. And yet we have these amazing tools that truly can create that possibility of having a truly great relationship, something that you're grateful for every day, something where that person makes you happier being around them than when you're not around them, somewhere where you're not giving up or cutting off any part of you, and they don't have to cut off any part of them, right. And where you contribute to creation.
You have more of you.
Well, one of the things that, as you guys are talking too, I'm seeing that the two words that sort of ping me is perfection and perfect relationship, which you guys definitely taught me. And we talk about in Access Consciousness that perfection is based on judgment.
Yes.
It's not something that, is creative. And then the other thing I've heard you say, Dain, is talking about relationship from, I loved this was great, creationship. So if we didn't have relationship and we had a creationship, it's like, that is beyond this reality. And it's like, what are some of the tools or tips that you could give people to even start to look at what that would be like to be in creationship, not in relationship?
Well, for me, the most important part of that is to recognize where you don't agree with somebody, because what most people try to do is align and agree with everything their partner says, rather than going, okay, we can have a different point of view, but if we have a different point of view, we know that we don't talk about this. This is not something we're going to get into an argument about. It's like my old friend Mary. She and her husband had this deal. It's like her husband would go, okay, the complaint department is closed, when she would get on him about it. The complaint department is closed. This is no longer up for discussion. And that meant that they would no longer discuss this option because they were never going to come to agreement on it. They were always going to have differing points of view. And if you just had the space of allowance where you could let somebody have a totally different point of view than you, and you didn't have to convince them that you were right or convince them they were wrong, it's like, what kind of freedom would you create with that?
That's a huge point, though, Gary, is that allowing somebody else to have a different point of view than you.
Yeah.
I see so many people in this reality, in relationship, just because they're in relationship, decide that they have to have the same point of view, which is the destruction of relationship.
Yes, because
not
as soon as you have the
creation.
same point of view, you've stopped creating. And that's the creationship part that Dain was talking about.
Well, if you have to have the same point of view, there are lots of things where you will have
You may have the
similar
same point of view.
Yeah.
It's not like, right, now I will have a different point of view from my partner because they said it on the podcast.
Exactly. And not like, I'm going to go find the person who has the most opposite of my points of view and do a relationship with them because that's creationship. No, that's not what we're talking about. But that place where you acknowledge it,
That's
you both,
destructionship.
that is destructionship. That is its own thing. We don't even want to go there right now.
But we might in the 4-day class that you have in Dublin.
True story.
Probably will.
Yeah.
Ooh, that's what we got to do is we got to tell them how to perfectly destroy their relationships. That's a great idea.
Or, like
Because then
myself
they can
and
look
Brandon
at
Watt are doing at the moment, is we are uncreating our relationship with
Yeah.
the Access Consciousness tools.
Yeah, uncreating it as it was, but still being there for each other as part of a creationship.
Yeah, I mean, one of the greatest gifts, it's like you guys starting to do the relationships done different has created an amazing change for people to look at. It's not about how you do it, it's like what you have to do. It's like, what do you choose to do? What's really going to work for you?
Yeah.
Yeah, and it involves, you talk about beyond this reality. It involves looking from a totally different place, which is what's going to create the greatest, what will create the most. What will create the most in my life, what will create the most in theirs, what will create the most in the world. And when you look from that place, it's not about, oh, you hurt my feelings. It's like, okay, I got my feelings hurt about this. Let's come to when I get my feelings hurt, when I'm in a relationship and I get my feelings hurt or have a weirdness, I go to the person, I go, I just had a weird thing come up when you said that. Can you tell me more about what you actually meant? And 95% of the time, it's because I misinterpreted something. They said it in a certain way, and I didn't hear it and didn't get clarity on it, so I interpreted it my own way. And if you'll look, 99% of the movies that are out there, the only thing that keeps the movie going is where two people didn't communicate about something that went on. And so then they have this entire storyline, and then at the end they get together and go, no, when I said this, I meant I love you and want to be with you. And then the movie ends, and you're like, fuck, are you kidding? If they would have had 3 minutes of conversation at the beginning, they would have not had the entire drama, and the movie wouldn't exist. But, you don't want your life and your relationships to be like a movie,
But people have
a lot
this
of
weird
people
point of view. I talked to somebody
think they
today
should.
who said, I don't want to do this anymore because I'm not happy. And I was like, what do you mean you're not happy? Well, it's like, this doesn't make me happy anymore.
But there's no question in that. They've already gone to the conclusion.
They've already got to the conclusion that I'm not happy, so therefore I'm not happy. I must destroy this relationship.
Instead of
what would it take for me to be happy, or how can I do this different?
Yeah, what other ways are there to be happy? And because this whole thing about asking the question rather than functioning from the conclusion is one of the biggest things that actually makes a relationship successful.
Yeah.
Asking yourself questions like, okay, how else could I do this? What else would make me happier? What is required to make me happy?
What would I really like to have here?
And also, for yourself, but also of the other person, like, hey, how you doing? What can we do to make this greater for you too?
Yeah.
So one of the things that you guys have sort of, touched on, if you're saying like, what would I really like to have here? And before, Dain, you were also saying about, what's going to create a greater possibility. What I would like to have a look at here too is, I know before I met both of you is, to me, what was projected at me was creating greater possibility always meant you had to be in relationship. And the first class I ever went to with you, Gary, was an evening class, and it was on relationship. You were the first person to empower me to realize I wasn't wrong if I didn't desire to have a relationship, that I was okay.
Yes.
I wasn't like, have two heads.
Hard work. I've been in a few, and it's like, it's the other 24/7 job you have.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, for the most part, most relationships are, what do I have to give up in order to make this person happy? What do I have to not do to make them happy? What are they going to be upset with me about in relationship to this? And it's like, what a great question are those?
That's a fun day.
I know.
Fun
That's
life.
a fun life. And it's so interesting because we have this weird concept and construct of relationship about it being so much work, but it's like there's a truth with a lie attached. Part of that is true, that if you're going to be in one, there's going to be a lot of work you have to do, but it's like the reward should far outweigh the work.
Exactly, yes.
And when that starts getting out of balance, where it's a lot more work than reward, it's like then you want to start asking some questions, start looking from a different place.
What you can change.
What can I change?
One of the things I recommend to people is that they destroy and uncreate everything their relationship was yesterday every day. And they won't do it. It's like I've watched people with business. They're not happy with their business. Destroy and uncreate everything your business was yesterday. Then you're on the creative edge of everything all the time.
That doesn't mean get a divorce. It doesn't mean burn your building to the ground if it's a business.
Yeah.
It means destroy and uncreate all the fixed points of view about what it was, and all the projections about what it was going to be that it isn't, and all of your judgments about it and you in relationship to it. So all the fixed stuff that's there, If you destroy and uncreate all that every day, you have the POC and POD, you have the clearing statement at theclearingstatement.com.
With my friend Dr. Dain Heer, who's on here today.
Thank you very much. So you have these tools, like use them. That's one way you can use it. You just go, okay, so all the things we just mentioned, I now destroy and uncreate it and run the clearing statement. And what happens is you start to get a sense of space and possibility where before it usually is sort of closing down into a dead end.
To a finite reality rather than something that can create something greater. So can you guys also talk about like the wrongness that people seem to go to when they are quote unquote single, that it's like this outcast, you don't get invited to things, you don't get,
Well, that's true.
Okay, tell me more.
Okay, I was married and I got a divorce, and suddenly my friends would not invite me to parties where they had married couples. And I finally went, why don't you invite me to anything where you have married couples? Because as a single man, you would be trying to take somebody's wife.
Wow.
And I went, whoa, that's so not true for me. I just got rid of one. Why would I?
So can I say, we live in such a totally different reality. I mean, Dain and I were talking last night saying we've known each other for 17 years now, and all the different tools and processes that we've used are from Access Consciousness, and the reality that we choose to live in is completely different to what you're talking about. So there is a different possibility if you're choosing to be in relationship, if you're choosing to be, quote unquote single, if you're choosing, whatever you're choosing, there's a different, there's a different reality available to you. And I highly recommend, I'm just going to do a little bit of a, you guys are doing the relationship class. There are some prerequisites to that. It's in Dublin in January, I think by the time we air this, it's live streamed. It'll be in like less than a week. So you can join that. And everything that I've been talking about on my podcast in regards to relationship business, every single one of those tools I have received from Access Consciousness. And these two gentlemen sitting next to me right now, Gary Douglas and Dr. Dain Heer, are the guys who created these tools. I will tell you, it hasn't been the easiest thing to use the tools all the time. It's not like, oh, look at this fun tool to use. You want to run screaming from the room. But using them actually creates a change, and it creates something different. So there is a totally different reality available for you with relationship, if you want to choose to be in one or choose not to be in one, as the case may be.
Yeah, and that I think is really such the big part of the difference. It's like there is a different reality available, but so many people, once again, they just they want to stick their head in the sand and have it work out fine. It doesn't. You have to work at it. If it's going to be a good relationship, you're going to have to work at it, no matter how wonderful the person is that you're with. It doesn't matter how wonderful and incredible they are. You have to work at it, because you're going to have stuff that comes up. There's no, in contrast to all the fairy tales and everything we've been taught by Disney, it's like they don't get together and live happily ever after. That's the beginning.
What?
I know.
Oh my God, right here, ladies and gentlemen, here on this podcast.
Debunking the myth, right here. Dr. Dain Heer.
There is no the one. Is that what you're trying to tell me as well?
I'm telling you.
But there are white horses, aren't there?
There are white horses, and there are people that ride them.
They just are not the one.
Gary and I, yes.
Exactly. So then one of the other questions that were sent in too is, what's the one thing we don't consider with regards to relationship that if we considered it would change everything?
We matter.
That we matter. Okay, can you talk more about that?
Well, it's like one of the things I noticed is most of the people in a relationship are trying to figure out what they have to change about them to make the other person happy. They're not looking at it, okay, is this person making me happy? Is being with this person creating more happiness than not? It's like when I got divorced, I looked at pictures of when I'd been married, and I looked at it and went, wow, that was really a fun time. Too bad it couldn't have been like that more of the time.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
But I realized that it's like my wife didn't want it to be happiness. She wanted it to be trauma and drama, because that was what was real for her. And you have to look at the person you're with and see what is real for this person. Is trauma and drama more real to them than possibility?
So how many people look for predictability in relationship, even if it is, unfortunately, the trauma and drama? Like, I know who I'm going to fight with, I know who I'm going to disagree with, or I know who I can always go home to that's uncomfortable, etc. And it's like, what else is available besides the predictable reality?
Well, what's available is the creative reality.
Creationship, the new word. They need to add it to the dictionary.
Exactly.
Because it's literally about recognizing what would I like to create and what can we create together that nobody's acknowledging. It's like Dain and I don't have a sexual relationship, but we have a creationship. And we create together in all kinds of different ways. And, people have asked if we're gay. And the answer is, he might be. No, the answer is...
My answer is, I'm not, but I think my boyfriend might be.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah, I like that too.
Yeah,
So
because, it keeps people in question.
Yes, it's like the thing, and it's being in question about it, and always being in the place where you realize, look, it's like, what are we trying to create here? What's the purpose of this relationship? And it's like what it's like we have as a purpose, a desire to create more consciousness. And so because of that, we can have an amazing relationship with each other, even though it doesn't include sex, and have a different place that we can function from than other people can. Do we, agree on everything? Absolutely not. When it comes to money, I'm always wrong and he's always right.
And
so one's the man and one's the woman.
Everything else, he's always right and I'm always wrong.
Yeah. Right. So you just reverse the roles.
Yeah, easy, no problem. Yeah. But the other thing about that is, so like Gary and I have a tremendous friendship, a dynamic level of intimacy, which is one of the things you have to have if you're going to have a great relationship. Yeah. And intimacy is not, we think intimacy is when you have sex and put your body parts together, but no, it's not that. It's actually the honoring, trust, allowance, vulnerability, and gratitude we have for ourselves and each other. But that's been developed over 18 years at this point, where, I'll never forget the first time I told Gary something that I had never told anybody, that I was in such judgment of myself for having done. And he looked and he went, "That's cool." And I was like, "What?" I literally thought he was going to not be my friend anymore. Yeah, I really thought that's what was going to be the case. And he didn't, and he was there and had no judgment and helped me process through the stuff that I had around it, and my world got a lot lighter.
What he had created around it, because we create these things about what we think other people are not going to receive or accept or allow in us.
But in that, what happened was, so that was this baby step into this being willing to be who you are with somebody and not have to be made wrong. And then over the years, it's like I've gotten a place where I can tell him anything, no matter how much judgment I've been in for doing it. And there's a lot of stupid things I've done in the last 18 years, but never before that, of course. And same thing with him. It's like
they were all before that. You haven't done anything stupid.
That's what I meant. Exactly.
You're perfect now. Oh no, you're not perfect, because that's based on judgment.
But it's same both ways. It's like he told me things that other people judged him for, and I'm like, oh, cool. Okay, let's change this too. And so we've got this thing where we know we have each other's backs.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean that I've always got to be right, he's always got to be right. It doesn't mean we have to play a particular role.
No.
And so there's this fluid dynamic to it. And it's like fluid dynamics.
That sounds like a Buick.
Kinda. The old Buick.
Fluid drive.
Fluid drive, exactly.
So can I say, what I'm hearing here too is that both of you, what you have been for each other is a sense of space with no judgment.
Yeah.
And how much do people create a relationship in this reality based on knowing that they're going to receive judgment, or even desiring to receive judgment?
It's not even that they know they're going to receive judgment. They assume they will receive judgment.
And your point of view creates your reality. And so when you have that assumption you're going to receive judgment, guess what you get?
Judgment.
Yeah.
Like I invited every man to come into my life that would judge me and my body, because it matched the judgments I had of me. And I was like, great, perfect, you're perfect because you match the judgment I have of me.
Exactly. And years ago. That's the thing that we have to realize is we have all these things, and we find somebody who matches that energy. We bring that kind of person into our lives.
One of the things you can do to help yourself is, what judgments do I have of me that do not match anybody else's reality?
Ooh, I like that.
Right, wrong, getting bad, pot and pock, all nine shorts, boys and beyonds. And if you look from that, if you run that, what judgments do I have of me that don't match anybody else's reality, and pot and pock the snot out of that? Number one, you'll start to feel different about you and like you more. Because anytime you get rid of your judgments, you like you more. But you'll also start to perceive people differently in the world. And you'll start to have them perceive you differently in the world.
Yeah.
Because what we do is we take our sum total of our judgments, we find somebody who matches those judgments, and then we're like, oh my God, you're perfect. if you, let's put it this way, if you see them across a crowded room and must have them,
run.
Exactly.
I'll never forget, Gary said that to me years and years ago. So why do they run?
Because what you're doing is you're looking for that passion. And what that passion is usually all the lifetimes you promised to get together and kill each other this lifetime. And so that activates you, like, oh my God, like if you've ever had a mad, passionate affair that ended passionately, because the meaning of passion is Christ tacked on the cross. Suffering as did the Christ is really the meaning of passion. So if you want to know what a passionate relationship will create, watch the movie called The Passion of the Christ.
No!
If you can stand it without a vomit, because it is horrendous.
It is horrendous. Yeah, years and years ago, I had an affair with a guy who actually, I remember him saying to me, I don't know what this is, but I feel like I've been married to you in another lifetime. And it was like, I didn't have the access consciousness tools at that time, but now I'd be like, yes, we were.
Yes.
And we did that. We saw each other and we're just like, must have you.
Yeah, exactly.
We actually had a fun time, but, it could have ended up not being so much fun.
Thank God for your choice in that matter.
Exactly.
Well, one thing about getting married is the marriage vows for so long have been till death do us part, but you as an infinite being never die. So one of the things that can help you all out there is how many people have you married in various lifetimes and you vowed till death do us part and you're still alive as a being. That body may have died, but here you are again. Hello. Everything that is and everywhere that creates your attraction to insane people will you destroy and uncreate.
Right and wrong, good and bad, pot and pock, all night, shorts, boys, and beyond.
And the other thing about that judgment, you give people the judgment. So if you have a judgment of you and you expect to get it, you put that in people's heads and they give it to you. When your first time recording in Australia, and I used to be very, very anal about a lot of things. I'm less anal now. That's good. That's all I will say. But
just those words, less anal. It's
less
like,
anal.
Where do we want to put that?
We're like, great conversation.
Which means he'll have anal sex whenever he wants, but he will have no judgment on it.
Exactly, or less of it. I don't know. Maybe. And so Simone plugged the equipment from the U.S. into the outlet in Australia, which is 220 volt, and it literally did that smoke rising.
Smoke everywhere.
And Simone's point of view was, oh my God,
Dan's going to be so angry. He's going to be so angry at me.
And it was so funny because I walked over, not a point of view in my head, and she's like, with this look on her face, I fried the equipment. And as soon as I tapped into the energy of what I was supposed to have, which was the anger, I got so angry. And I was like, I can't believe it. And then realizing that it was a point of view that you had in your head after that, it was like, oh, okay, I'm over it.
But here's what I'm really grateful for, Dain, is, and I see so many people in a relationship that sort of, maybe they're not dealing with audio equipment. It's another scenario. It's like, but you have this point of view, this judgment that someone's going to be a certain way, so that they end up being that certain way. And then there's these ugly growths that create from that, rather than you and I had the awareness and the sense and the place to be in question to go, hey, what actually went on? Yeah. And when I said to you, the first point of view was that I went, oh my God, Dan's going to be so angry with me. And we realized what was going on. And then we ended up laughing about it. And it's like, what if you could have that place in your relationships with everyone, not just the person you're choosing to copulate with. Exactly. It's like in business and your friends and your family, to actually have the sense to ask questions, which is what we talk about in Access Consciousness all the time, is asking questions and not going to answer, so that you can have a different possibility. And as you guys are talking, I know that this is a short podcast, and I personally am super, super excited for the 4-day relationship class that you have coming up. Because
it'll be kick-ass.
It will be kick-ass. And what I would like for people to get out of that, and if there's any last tool you have here to offer, is, the space that someone can be when they actually have no judgment of themselves and have the availability of the entirety of the planet at their fingertips to create something greater than this reality. Yeah. And it's like,
that's when creationship begins.
A new word.
Creationship.
Someone needs to get in contact with the
creationship class.
Creationship. Maybe we should cross it out.
Yeah, let's do
creationship.
Let's do that.
Actually, I think we should start doing that in the market.
Yeah, let's do it.
No, I've got some ideas.
Oh, it sounds fun.
Oh, no.
And I had a friend who was in psychology. He was a psychology major, and he said, well, it's like this relationship isn't working very well for me. He says, well, Yeah, but I learned in my class today that, 99% of the people on the planet would rather have a bad relationship than no relationship.
They would, which is insane.
Yeah.
Is
Yeah.
true.
And we've had people who, like, their husbands beat them, their wives castrated them, and it's like, and they stayed with these people because they didn't want to be alone.
Hey,
I would rather be alone.
If I had not met you and gotten the tools that you were so kind to share with me, I would have been one of those people.
You would have been dead by now.
Because I know,
I would have been dead by now on drugs, I'm sure. So
But I was
you would have been
in this-
dead from creating crap relationships.
a really bad. No, I was going to
Oh,
marry
you
this
would
woman who was so mean,
Yes.
who did not like me, who had judgment of me every day, and I just thought that was normal. But I want to say one other thing. You talked about not being in judgment of yourself. It's like Gary functions from that. Like, he's not in judgment of himself, and for a except when he is, which is not very
A
often.
nanosecond.
It's actually really cool. It's actually really cool to be around, because when you're around somebody who's not in judgment of them, you don't find things to judge. You don't find things that, there's not a lot of like broken glass lying all on the floor of your house. You know what I mean? But one of the things, for a long time, a lot of people Gary just always thinks he's right. And I kept looking at that, and I saw places where I thought he was right, whatever. Like, that was his inherent point of view. And I was wondering how to tell people that. And finally it dawned on me, and I realized he never thinks he's right, but he never thinks he's wrong, which is so different.
But I know I'm not wrong.
But what you actually function from is question, which creates
choice,
awareness.
But he knows he's not wrong.
Yeah.
And that comes across to other people will look at that because they're so used to functioning from a judgmental reality.
From right or wrong is the only reality.
And so they go, oh, well, he thinks he's right all the time. It's like, no, he just doesn't ever think he's wrong.
I love that.
Which is awesome.
Yeah, thank you. That's an awesome
I invite
tool.
all of you to adopt that reality.
Yeah, adopt a Gary. No, adopt a Gary's reality. Oh my God, that'd be a great
You're
idea.
not adopted Gary's reality. You're not. Gary's like, what does that? What do I have to do?
If you act now, we'll send you a picture of the Gary you've just adopted with monthly updates about his progress in the
Instead of a
world.
dolphin or a tree in the Amazon.
Or a chimp, or something. Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. So, all right. Well, I want to thank you guys so much for coming on this podcast today.
Thank you for having us.
And oh man, such a pleasure. I'm so grateful that I, have a creationship with you guys and met you guys 17 years ago. Mm-hmm. And what else can we create? And the one thing I would like to say is, if you're choosing to be in a relationship, creationship, or you're choosing to be single and have too much fun, whatever it is for you, it's like, keep asking questions and know that there's a different possibility. Love that last tool that we spoke about of you're not necessarily right, but you're also never ever wrong.
Yeah.
Yep.
So what can you create from that? Don't forget to check out accessconsciousness.com, and please, please, please get your bars run. I know I talk about this all the time, but you can find a bars facilitator near you, because we're in 176 countries.
Yes,
that's a lot.
we are.
Even in North Korea. So
It saved my
there you
life
go.
18 years ago.
Goodness, yes. You want to talk about that for like 2 minutes?
Yeah, I was trying to create the perfect world, perfect reality, perfect relationship, and it sucked, and my business sucked. I'd been unhappy for the better part of 3 years, and I tried every friggin' technique I could. I go to a weekend workshop, and I thought I'd found the answer, and then by Wednesday I was unhappy again. What I didn't have was the tools. Mm-hmm. And so I saw an ad in the paper that said, all of life comes to you with ease and joy and glory, and I wanted to kill her. It was Shannon, Gary's stepdaughter, that put the ad in the paper. And so I called her, because I'd learned long before, if you love it or hate it, there's something there for you. And I called and said, what do you do? She said, well, we do all kinds of stuff, but we could start with the bars. At the worst, you feel like you had a good massage. At the best, your whole life will change. And in the back of my head, I'm going, my whole life better fucking change or I'm out of here, And I have her come over to my chiropractic office, and I lay down on my table that I hate, looking up at the ceiling that I hate, staring out the window that I hate. She puts her hands on my head, and I feel this rush of energy that feels like somebody actually loves you. Like, it's like this, I can't even describe it. It was a sense of peace that was so phenomenal. And then after about 5 or 10 minutes, I started giggling like a little kid. And she would move her hands to all these different places, and I would giggle more and more and more every time she moved her hands. And I got up an hour and 15 minutes later, and it was the first sense of peace I'd had in almost 3 years. And I remember looking out at the sky, whereas I was there before the session, depressed and literally suicidal, because I literally had planned when I was going to kill myself. And I went from depressed and suicidal to full of possibilities and gratitude for being alive. And every time I talk about that, I cry because it's like, man, how did I get so lucky? So
I do not know what I would do without bars, honestly.
you and me both.
So,
Or me.
and you can check out bars.accessconsciousness.com and find a bars facilitator near you. My highly recommendation is actually do a bars class, because then you get to receive bars twice and give them twice. And guess what? After that, you can become a practitioner and actually make some money. Oh no, you wouldn't want to do that, would you?
That would be bad.
That would be bad. So anyway, thank you so much for joining me on this podcast, and thank you, Gary and Dain. You are an absolute
Thank you,
pleasure to have
Simone.
on here, and I'm so grateful. How does it get any better than this?
Right back at you.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye.